Another piece of the puzzle that we had throughout the single-player campaign, or at least a part of the single-player campaign, was the Infested Protoss ship, where you, as infecting that Protoss female, she goes onto the ship, the larva bursts out, and they're off to collect a lot of essence when you're inside the ship. Yes, exactly, all that essence. And the queen grows and is able to evolve and spawn more zerglings, roaches, hydras, etc. That ship is completely infested. It is not able to go warn the Protoss of the Golden Armada, and the Zerg is trying to reach out to the queen, and then she says, "We are alone." Paraphrasing, "We will await the Queen of Blades' instructions." You think, uh-oh, the Protoss going to come across the ship, and is this going to be a thorn in the Alliance's side of, well, we're not going to ally with Sarah because she infested one of our ships and wiped out this whole entire colony, so there's another axe they're going to grind against Sarah. You know, I wonder if that's going to come into play later, because they leave it hanging. They leave it completely hanging. It's still floating out in space.
That's right. That's a great point. I completely forgot about that.
Yeah. I wonder. Next question, Project Blackstone. Unfortunately, we did not see Jake Ramsey in Heart of the Swarm. We were very fortunate enough to have Stukoff and other characters show up, of course. We're very happy about that. But the man himself, the Indiana Jones of the StarCraft universe, Jake Ramsey, has not yet made an appearance in a video game. And when he was revealed, as we talked about in our last episode, to be inside Project Blackstone, blew our minds for all the ones that love the lore and read the Dark Templar saga. We need to have this person in the game. We have got to have Jake Ramsey in the game, man. He is too crucial to not have in there. I would say the same for Michael Liberty. He did not make an appearance whatsoever in Heart of the Swarm, but honestly, that's okay because it's not about the Terran. He did make a very brief appearance in Wings of Liberty. So your thoughts about Jake Ramsey, how he could be incorporated as far as humanizing the Protoss, and how would you introduce him to Legacy of the Void, Kevin?
Honestly, I would have some kind of meeting between all of the higher powers, and I would like to see the game start off this way. You know, Zeratul. Maybe we go back in time and we start the game off with Zeratul going back and talking to Artanis, possibly with Tassadar. Maybe Tassadar's already there. At some point during that game, hopefully, you know, quicker or sooner rather than later, I would like to see Kerrigan and Tassadar, Zeratul, and Artanis, and this new, and Valerian, assuming he does indeed take over, all come together at one point and have Zeratul and Valerian introduce. Oh, obviously Jim Raynor would be there too. But have Zeratul and Valerian introduce Jake Ramsey, who they kind of already know about, obviously. Zeratul has met him when Zamara was inside of him. And it's very interesting because Jake Ramsey, even though Zamara is out, she's again trapped inside of the Ehon crystal. The same crystal with Ul Razaj, actually, who may or may not make a comeback, which would be interesting to see. But anyway, I would like to see that kind of interaction. Obviously, Jake Ramsey is extremely important. He is essentially what Kerrigan is to the Terran and Protoss. And even though Zamara is already outside, or her essence is gone, he seems to still have that tie to the Protoss. Like he mentioned in one of the Blackstone entries, he says you don't hear them screaming because they were doing some tests and experiments. And it's very interesting. Perhaps his DNA, his sequence, his essence, maybe that's transformed and been spun into something new while he's still been living because of Zamara. It's an interesting concept to think about, because again, the Terran weren't really playing a part. They had nothing to do with this whole Xel'Naga thing, right? The Xel'Naga came out of nowhere, and they uplifted the Zerg and the Protoss, but left the Terran alone. So it's an interesting situation we've got going on where the Terran, their DNA meshes so nicely with both Protoss and Zerg.
What I would like to see, and how I would script to incorporate Jake Ramsey, is that a lot of people don't know exactly what's going on with the prophecy, the history of the Xel'Naga. Just as Kerrigan is the most connected Terran to the Zerg, Jake Ramsey is the most connected Terran to the Protoss. And the next person that'd be connected would be Jim Raynor himself, because of his interaction with Phoenix and how they were friends, and Tassadar and Zeratul, and how Zeratul trusts him as well. Jake Ramsey is called into this big meeting before they assault or go into the void, and Protoss leaders are there and Terran leaders are there, and Jake Ramsey walks in and says, okay, here's what you have to know about our enemy, what we're up against. This is what I found out. And this starts the sequence that I feel we need to see in StarCraft of the golden age of the Xel'Naga, a flashback to show us who the Xel'Naga were, what they were like, and what went wrong, how they got destroyed by the Zerg, how they elevated the Protoss, how they elevated the Zerg, how they're connected, how they are being bridged together now as hybrids by Samir Duran. by his lackey through the influence and guidance of Aemon to finish this plan that has been in motion for thousands of years. Once everyone is up to speed on what's happening, Jake Ramsey wants to join the fight. He is crucial in the information and for everyone to join together. And him as a human is telling them, listen, I know you have some hesitation about the Protoss. I know you don't want to work with the Zerg. But if we do not stand together, there will be no universe. That's how I would want to incorporate Jake Ramsey. And I feel that
it almost seems like we need four games, really. We need a Protoss campaign to reunite the Protoss, and we need something explaining the Xel'Naga. That's what we need. That's what we're gonna call it. The StarCraft, the 4th expansion, the Golden Age or the Golden Era.
Golden Age. Well, I would love to have a cinematic in between. I even asked Jeff Chamberlain, he's the head of the effects department for Blizzard Entertainment. I said, is it possible that you could have an animated video similar to the Animatrix or Gotham Knight, to have 7 different animators with 7 different stories, but they can help bridge the gap between Heart of the Swarm and Legacy of the Void so that we can be more involved in the Protoss story and the Protoss history and the history of the Xel'Naga that leads us into Legacy of the Void. I love the novels. The novels are great, but when you can have that sense of interactivity with a movie like they did with Wrath for Diablo to set up the different characters from heaven, you get a little bit more emotional investment in it. And you and I, having read all the novels, you still have yet to read Flashpoint. I know you're going to get on that, even though we pretty much spoiled everything that happens. You still should definitely read it.
I'm still reading it, yeah.
There's such a huge emotional investment you have in these characters, and there is so much exposition and growth the characters have that unfortunately they don't have in the game. But because you and I and others have experienced that, we get so much more out of the game's experience. And I feel that Blizzard has such a huge opportunity to really bridge that gap from the novels to the game itself with Jake Ramsey. He is awesome. Okay, let's talk about Legacy of the Void before we wrap up. You brought up some great points. When they mention Legacy of the Void is this place, and it's also this power. It's where the Dark Templar draw their power to be invisible, to be cloaked. Is Aemon that legacy that comes from the Void? Is it the Xel'Naga that comes from the Void that is that legacy? Aemon is clearly somewhere dead, or at least we thought he was dead, now resurrected from this place. Could he be that legacy? The Protoss in Legacy of the Void, in the words of Chris Metzen, are going to be unleashed in a way that we probably saw a glimmer of, a slice of, a section of, a hint of, a flavor of, a sample of, so many different adjectives I can have, of what they can do with Tassadar. The Protoss that could combine the power of the Kala with the power of the Void to annihilate the Overmind. He is not done yet in this story, and what he was able to unleash, I feel the entire race of the Protoss has that power, and we will see that in the game. Tassadar, again, could he be a reincarnation or rebirth or I don't want to say imagination, but kind of a repeat of a cycle of who Adun was back in the history of the Protoss. And as you said before, Kevin, the Protoss suffer from being divided. They almost are like the most divided race at this point because there's so many different tribes. You have the Tal'Darim, you have the Kala, you have the Dark Templar, and they've had this kind of racial tribal warfare for so long. And in those missions, they talked about that whoever you're in charge of, I don't know if it's going to be Artanis or Zeratul, but you're trying to unite all the tribes to work as one. And the Tal'Darim are definitely a group that do not want to work with any other living Protoss. They have quite a history, as we've seen through all the games. There's several factions of them. You have the one that use the Terrazine, the one that worship Aemon. You have ones that just want to stay away from the Kala Protoss. There's a lot of different iterations, and I think Blizzard, in order to help incorporate who they are and how they fit in the story, maybe might compartmentalize them or highlight them in a way. But they definitely have been a thorn in the side of the Terran and Heart of the Swarm. Kevin, anything else we need to add here for questions that we have or what we'd like to see in Legacy of the Void before we wrap up?
Honestly, I think that does a great job of wrapping things up. At the end of the day, I'm excited. I can't wait for Legacy of the Void. It's hopefully 3 years or less in the future. I'm pumped. Honestly, doing shows like this, I kind of have a love-hate relationship. I love talking about the lore, and this is a lot of fun for me. But now I'm really excited. I can't wait to get my hands on Void. This is going to be killer now. I'm just going to have to try and put it out of my mind. But anyway, I can't wait for Void. I really think they're gonna wrap up a lot of loose ends. Obviously, seeing as how it's the last installment of the series, I think they're gonna do a good job with it, coming right off of Heart of the Swarm. I just really want to learn more about the Xel'Naga.
Me too, man. Well, in order to know the ending, we have to know the beginning, and I think it's better that we actually have in the game to see what had happened with that race. Lauren, I know you've been taking some questions from chat. As we finish up our questions asked, what does chat have to say?
There's a few questions. Let me go to them. Okay, how come the Terran never found the Zerg homeworld or knew nothing about it?
Some Terran might have known about scientifically, maybe with expeditions, but it was outside of the Koprulu sector, outside of the known space. That's why. But guess what? Zeratul knew where it was, and he told Kerrigan where it was. So that's my answer.
Do you know the Blackstone lore behind why siege tanks don't need to research siege mode anymore?
Yeah, it was neat that they actually incorporated that into the research of Blackstone and how they changed it in multiplayer, and also, well, you don't have any Terran single player really for Heart of the Swarm. It was a change in compartments and some things inside. I read it once. Sixen, do you have any further details? It was cool to read the one time, and I went, great, now I can win more against Zerg.
I kind of did the same exact thing, but because what I really took out of that was, hey, this is really cool. They're rationalizing balance changes within the lore. But yeah, otherwise, it was kind of just that they came in with this new technology that allowed them to, on the fly, do things.
Also,
and, I mean, that was...
In the engineering world, too, if you have an original product and you think, well, it works, we don't need to change it, and then somebody's like, actually, if we change this compartment inside and get rid of this cup holder, we don't need to spend 100 to research the siege mode. And when I read it, that was going through my mind of, oh, that's neat. They just kind of re-engineered to see how it'd be more efficient, and that's why you don't need the upgrade.
Yeah.
But I thought that what Blizzard did was cool. I mean, I wish I could come up with another adjective to describe that, but I really liked how they incorporated, like you said, Kevin, the balance changes. Another question.
Yeah. I'm just going to go straight to the one that I'm most curious about.
Sure.
What do you think, your opinion, is going to happen in like Legacy of the Void or StarCraft III that comes out? What do you think the loose ends that are going to be tied are going to be?
Well, it'll be this huge struggle to defeat Amon and to crush his presence, his hybrid technology, all that to save.
That's what a lot of people were saying too.
I think another thing, too, is that the Xel'Naga always talked about unifying these two races, the purity of form and the purity of essence, and how combining them, in my sense, of course, this is clutch theory crafting, combining them is how the Xel'Naga continue their legacy. Is that they don't really procreate. They elevate other races and combine those races to continue the intelligence, the amount of power, the essence, the form, and you combine those two, and that's how the Xel'Naga, which could be not even just a specific species, but actually an elevated sense of life or an elevated sense of power, mortal to immortal. So that may be how they continue on their legacy.
Right.
And the Protoss and Zerg realize that in order for them to actually be in harmony, they have to combine, but not with the influence of Amon. They have to do it together. And that would be almost kind of sad because both those races would cease to actually kind of exist in that universe, but they would become something more. And I think that might be what the actual legacy is, but of course I'm theory crafting here. So a lot of people would be really sad because they would be like, well, if there's no Zerg and Protoss, then there's not going to be
it sounds like a pretty good assumption.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
We shall see.
We still have the remnants from Kerrigan and Jake Ramsey.
Mm-hmm. And I wonder how humanity will fit into that. If the human race doesn't, if they say, well, we didn't elevate the human race because we felt that they could be able to do it on their own, and then you realize, whoa. And then because in a way they kind of do with the psionic emanations that they're able to have, they kind of evolve on their own towards it. And this gets into the whole scientific exploration of the human experience and how far advancements go, and can we honestly reach a wall that we have to have another race intervene to help us? And that even goes into something as simple as parenting. How much do you actually do it with your child, help your child, tell your child exactly how to do it, or how much do you let your child figure it out on their own?
There's a lot that could happen.
I know there's a lot, but there's a lot of allegories that just pop in my mind when I think about it.
There's also the UED. What have they been doing? I mean, they're just hanging out. Right, so they might make an entrance. I'd like to see some of the old Terran Heroes, Alan Sheezer, who actually may or may not be dead, kind of the same end result
gonna
as.
need a psychiatrist.
Oh, yeah, right.
Well, and,
Like all this going back and forth from like races, she doesn't know who she is. She doesn't even know who she wants to be.
and you wonder too if her and Jim are actually going to be together, if she's going to give up being Zerg.
Never.
And that's kind of sad because
I
you
mean,
want them to
it's
get
sad
together in the
because
end.
you want them to be together throughout this whole story. But I mean, when you look at it, it's like a bad breakup. Like it doesn't work out.
Well, you wonder what's going to happen at the end of this battle. Maybe Jim will fulfill his promise that once it's over, Kerrigan's like, listen, I have nothing else to live for. In order for the Zerg to actually be primal once again, you need to destroy the hive mind, and I'm the final piece. And so in the end, Jim does have to kill Sarah.
Or there's going to just be a love child.
Yeah, that
What's
would be
gonna happen
interesting.
is
That
he's
is the
gonna
next
kill Kerrigan.
Zelnaga.
This is what's gonna happen. He's gonna kill Kerrigan, and then as he shoots her in the head, a door is gonna open. There's gonna be like a door, and there's gonna be a crying baby behind it.
Oh no.
Love child.
No. All right.
That's what's gonna happen, and then he's gonna be like, oh, face palm, and that's what's gonna happen.
That'll be super sad. I don't.
Legacy of the love child.
Yeah. Maybe the love child's called Void. Right? You fill a void in my life, son.
Void.
Well, as much as we would love for this to continue forever, the greatest stories always have an ending. And there needs to be some things that end. There needs to be an ending to this huge, amazing drama that we've all experienced for the last 15 years. Otherwise, if it continues to keep going on and on and on and on, things become less impactful.
Yeah, it's like watching the Kardashians.
Or a season of a TV season that goes on for
like
too
the
long,
Kardashians.
too many, you have to have a proper ending. You have to tell a story knowing the end from the beginning. Otherwise, the journey may be amazing, but the payoff at the end is really. I went through all of that and I experienced such emptiness.
You need a good, strong. But boom.
I know, but I think this whole legacy of StarCraft, it's going to take a void to fill, and that's what we're going to see in the last game. All right, well, I appreciate everyone coming on. I appreciate the questions and BlizzPlanet and AA Move TV joining us with their questions and submissions. I'm going to go through the ranks here, starting with you, Kevin. What would your final words like to be?
I just want to say thank you guys for having me on. Like I said, I have a blast talking lore. For any of the games, Diablo, StarCraft, Warcraft, it's a ton of fun. I don't get to do this nearly as often as I would like to. Otherwise, on an ending note, I'm trying to support Blizzard All-Stars pretty early. Got to talk to some nice people at the Swarm launch event. So if you're interested, follow me on Twitter at Sixen. Otherwise, you can check out the series I put together for All-Stars on YouTube, just youtube.com/Sixen. So instead of an X, it's CK. Otherwise, thanks again for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
Always a pleasure to have you co-hosting in my corner, my friend, and you bring such an amount of knowledge and perspective to the world of StarCraft. You truly are a valued asset, and I know Blizzard recognizes that, and I know good things are going to come from you in the future. Lauren Elise, as being the chat moderator and also taking this journey with us, what are your final words?
Thank you for having me on and filling me in. I really appreciate it. I felt like I knew that experiencing all the lore with you, instead of just like going through it by myself, because I knew I had just so many questions and I would be like, oh, that's really cool, but why is that happening? So just being here and experiencing it with you and all of chat, asking questions, I feel like it really brought a lot together for me. So thank you for having me on. And then at home, I have my own stream too. You guys can tune in. You can, it's Twitch TV/NASL_Lauren. I'm Silver League, so I'm a noob, but I do a lot of laddering and play with friends sometimes. Follow me on Twitter at I am Lauren Elise, and I'm always in and out of the offices here, so tune into NASL TV. And Clutch, again, you're like my best bud here, so thank you for having me on.
Well, thank you. We couldn't have done it without you, Lauren. And you always bring a sense of enjoyment and this sense of awe and wonder to the world of games that sometimes we miss out on. And it's truly been a pleasure to have you here all the time. And I know how hard it can be when you're getting into something new, but I'm really grateful that you've put so much time and effort into it. And the gaming community really recognizes that. And we're all really proud of you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. You've been here for almost a year now, so I needed to say that so the world could hear it. There, pat on the back from Kevin. There you go. All right, well, I'm going to be a little bit long-winded here on my final words, and I apologize ahead of time if I get emotional, but to me, storytelling is what I live for. I love to meet people. I love to present people. I love people to feel good about themselves, and I feel that stories help us as humans to understand the wisdom of others and to understand from their mistakes and recognize their mistakes and not make the same again. And also how much art can speak to us and teach us valuable lessons that we will forever treasure in our lives. I wanted to share 3 different moments that have happened in my life, and the third one is going to be the final thing I wanted to share with that ending cinematic. When it comes to the aesthetic power of art and how it can touch us all. The first time was when I was 11 years old. I went and saw Contact, the movie Contact with my mother, starring Jodie Foster, directed by Robert Zemeckis. And at 11 years old, I loved science fiction. I loved Star Wars. I loved anything to do with space. And I watched this film, and it took me on a journey that at a young age I really didn't quite recognize. I really couldn't pinpoint how I had felt, but subconsciously it really spoke to me. And if you know the story, this woman receives with the SETI team this information on how to build this interstellar portal opener, if you will, this transportation device. And there's a lot of hesitation to send her because she doesn't come out and say she believes in God. She believes in things that she can only see, empirical evidence. But she still goes, and she experiences 18 hours of this phenomenal journey. And she meets this alien who takes the form of her father to comfort her and to teach her and to guide her and to tell her these things. And it's just a step. It's not the end. But to everyone else, she simply falls down the device, and they think she's making it up. And she's telling them, listen, I have experienced something I cannot deny. And to me, it's what faith is. You know, it's something that you cannot deny, but you can't share it immediately with people. But at the very end, she clutches some sand in her hand, and she looks off to the canyon, and the movie pans to stars, and it says, simply in the corner, for Carl. And it meant for Carl Sagan and how impactful he was in the realm of science fiction. And at 11 years old, I had never experienced anything like that before, but I started weeping. I started crying. My mom was trying to comfort me, and I told her, I don't know what's happening, but I feel this huge sense of awe. The second time this happened to me, it happened to me a variety of times, but I want to highlight the second time. Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, the very end, Frodo, his finger's bitten off, Gollum grabs the ring, he falls into Mount Doom, it's over, the journey is over, they escape, they have lava pouring around them, they know they're going to die, this is the end. And this darkness that was around Frodo starts to dissipate, and his eyes open, and he tells Sam, I can see the Shire. I can see all these things from home that I remember. And Sam is sitting next to him, and he's got tears in his eyes because he knows it's over. He's going to die. And he says, Rosie Cotton dancing. She had ribbons in her hair. If there was a girl I would have married, it would have been her. It would have been her. And that spoke to me so much in that moment because there's so many times you think, I should have took a chance on this person. I should have took a chance in this moment, but I didn't. I was too scared. And you realize at the end of my life, am I going to look back on that and regret it? Or am I going to be happy that I actually took a chance? And later in the movie, when they're back at the bar and they're all doing the cheers to each other, he looks at her, simply puts down his drink and goes and talks to her. And later on, you see that they get married. A very profound moment, a very aesthetically powerful moment to me that inspired me in my real life. The third moment was at the very end of Heart of the Swarm, after this huge battle had been waged and Jim told Sarah that they were done, but in the end came and was there at her side to defeat Arcturus Mengsk. The face that Sarah has in this cinematic is so beautiful to me. This is a face of someone who loves Jim, and she has been through so much and has sacrificed so much in her life, but at that moment she simply thanks him. A lot of people criticize Blizzard for their dialogue. It's not the best dialogue, I will admit, because they sometimes want to be epic all the time. A lot of game studios, a lot of movie studios have this issue where everything has to be epic, epic, epic. Well, guys, if everything's epic, nothing is. In that moment, Sarah thanked Jim. That was the most epic feelings I've felt in the series of StarCraft. And to me, that is what makes this game phenomenal, and you should experience it for yourself. It has been such a pleasure to be involved in the scene of StarCraft for so many years, be it a consumer at such a young age, seeing a poster of a Protoss character in Future Shop going, StarCraft, that has something to do with Warcraft, I think. My dad getting the game and history being made, to eSports and how much it has exploded, to the final installment of Legacy of the Void, which will happen in 3 years. It has been such a pleasure. And I look forward to seeing more courageous steps that are taken from developers such as Blizzard and others to take us into realms we never thought possible thanks to the art of video games. Thank you for watching. You can follow me on Twitter @Clutch08. Good night and good game.